Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, we'll kick things off with some bittersweet news. We're talking about arguably the best Nintendo DS emulator on Android, DraStic. And DraStic DS just went 100% free. If you've got an Android and you've got Google Play and you search up DraStic, you should see it as free. The sad part about this news is that the developer Exophase doesn't plan on keeping it on the store for very long. They say, I just changed the app on Google Play to free. I don't intend to even have it on there for that much longer. But I want to make it clear that I don't have any kind of financial incentive to not opening the source. Releasing the source in short order is something I fully intend on doing. Exophase then says this change can't be undone, so that's it. I was already planning on this a while ago, so it's not simply due to the Nintendo stuff. That just made the whole process more urgent. Which I guess is a good thing because I'm terrible at doing things. So bad news, it appears that DraStic may not be on Google Play for much longer, but good news, DraStic is now 100% free and soon to be open source, which means it'll probably never die. And speaking about never dying, next up we're talking about Nintendo Switch emulation with Yuzu. And yesterday we talked about Yuzu officially dying. The emulator was shut down, development was shut down. The GitHub was pulled down, and the website is now kind of down. However, when Yuzu was active, it was open source, which means basically anybody who wanted the source code could get it. There were no restrictions there. If someone wanted to fork it, if someone wanted to archive it, if someone wanted to use that code to create a copy of Yuzu, they absolutely could. And it appears that a lot of people did exactly that. So although Nintendo did stop the original version of Yuzu, they may have their hands full trying to stop every single clone of it out there. And more clones seem to be springing up, and more clones seem to be playing off of the name of Yuzu. And on that vein, I would also argue this may be an opportunity for some people to distribute malware under the guise of Nintendo Switch emulation. And it's worth pointing out that as far as I know, none of the original Yuzu developers are still working on Yuzu or even a clone of it. For example, Bunei here says, hello Yuzuers and Citra fans. I would like to share that I am leaving the emulation scene for good. Thank you for your years of support and for understanding my decision. And on a quick side note here, a little while back, Video Game Esoterica put out a video with their prediction on what was going to happen with the Nintendo vs. Yuzu case. And it turns out they were correct. On top of that, they've explained what they think is going to happen with emulation moving forward. I'll drop a link to this video in the description below. Without giving too much away, I would argue he makes some good points. I do recommend checking out that video. It's only 11 minutes long. But moving on, and next up we're talking about PCSX2, and PCSX2 got some small but nice updates. There are some GameDB fixes for God of War 2, and enemy attacks no longer turn into squares. And the recording feature now shows a red circle as opposed to a question mark when things are recording. And speaking about PS2 emulation, next up we're talking about Play. And for those who may not be aware, Play does not require a BIOS file. It's available for iOS, Android, Mac, Windows, Linux, and even in your browser. Anyways, Play version 0.64 just dropped. It's the first new version since November. While Play's overall game compatibility isn't on the same level as something like PCSX2, Aether SX2, or Nether SX2, it is improving. They've tested 2,565 games. And out of those, 41.95% are listed as playable. If you are curious about this one, I'll drop a link to it in the description below and feel free to check it out, and I'll drop a link to their compatibility tracker as well. Next up, we're talking about ROM Properties, and for those who may not be aware, ROM Properties is a shell extension that adds a few nice features to file browsers for managing video game ROM and disk images. So version 2.3 of ROM Properties has just dropped. There's bug fixes, optimizations, and brand new features. For example, it now supports dark mode, it supports Intellivision ROM images, ColecoVision ROM images, and Commodore disk images. ROM Properties is available for Windows and Linux. If you're interested and wanted to learn more about it, I'll drop a link in the description below. Next up, we're talking about Capcom, and Capcom has just announced a brand new 2-day event called Capcom Highlights. Capcom says they'll be providing the latest info on titles launching soon and give the world an update on the current state of Capcom. Day 1 is happening on March 7th, and they're showcasing Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess and Dragon's Dogma 2. And Day 2 is occurring on March 11th, and they're showcasing some stuff for Street Fighter 6, Exoprimal, Monster Hunter Now, and Monster Hunter Stories. In my opinion, I'm happy they're doing the event, but I don't know why it has to be on 2 different days and why the days are so far apart. Let me know your thoughts about Capcom Highlights in the comments below. Next up, we're quickly talking about MultiVersus, and if you remember correctly, a while back this game kind of released and then kind of unreleased, and now it appears to be gearing up for a re-release. Here is their latest information. Taps mic, testing, 1, 2, 3. If you don't remember, MultiVersus is a platform fighter from Warner Brothers Games. And this has a pretty diverse cast. I believe early access and beta access ranged from July of 2022 to June of 2023, almost an entire year. And then it was taken down, and the official release is sometime this year. Next up, we're talking about Steam, and Steam has just unveiled a brand new feature called Private Games. If this sounds familiar, it's because they talked about it back in December, and now it's a part of Steam. So we've got private purchasing, maintain your privacy by marking games as private before purchase, and private apps, mark games as private so they are only visible to you. Next up, we're quickly talking about Linux, and it appears that Linux is getting a little bit more popular across the globe. According to StatCounter and the desktop operating system market share worldwide, Linux went from 3.77% to a whopping 4.03%. Now, this may not seem like much, especially compared to Windows, which is sitting at a whopping 72%, but at the same time, it's getting more popular. And fun fact, Android still has a stranglehold on the most popular operating system worldwide by a considerable margin. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you liked this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.